Chapter 9. Joseph. I tried to kill myself a few weeks ago, the lady to my right blurts aloud. Ben and I are the only ones looking at her while the rest of the support group looks in other directions. The flickering lights throughout the church basement emphasize the bags under the lady's eyes as she continues. I walked in on my husband with another woman. We were married for a decade, and now I'm forced to question how real that decade was. I usually eat lunch near work, but that day, I went home for lunch. The house is quiet, but I heard this faint sound from our bedroom while chopping onions. It's funny how in that moment, as soon as I heard the noise, I knew he was fucking some other woman in our bed. I considered leaving instead of confronting them. I almost convinced myself that if I didn't see it, it wasn't actually happening, but I had to see it for myself. I was so jacked up on adrenaline at that point, I only remember bits and pieces. I remember seeing the door hanging open like they didn't even consider the possibility I'd walk in. I remember seeing her naked back bent over him as he lay under her. I remember him seeing me from around the curve of her waist. I remember looking at her and knowing exactly why he would sleep with this woman. She was young, hot. Then, I remember him calling me crazy for holding the knife in my hand. The lady laughs under her breath. I didn't use the knife. I dropped it and ran out of the house. I knew it was going to fuck with my head, and lo and behold, I down a handful of Xanax at my sister's house. I blink, and then I wake up in the hospital. Ben listens attentively from across the circle. With his fingers laced over his knee, he opens his mouth to speak, but is cut off by another group member. "Do you still think about killing yourself?" the guy asks. Every now and then the thought crosses my mind. "I've been thinking about committing suicide too." The guy's hollow gaze hovers over the group. "There's that show, Greater Good. If you're gonna end your life, might as well be for something. They give whoever you want a whole lot of money for ending your life on the show. If you got kids or family you want to give money to, you should consider being on it. I know I'm considering it." "There are viable options," Ben interjects cautiously. "There are plenty of different ways to seek help before considering such a thing." He faces the lady. "Your feelings of sadness and betrayal are normal responses to an experience as traumatic as the one you faced. I can't tell you how to live your life, but there are ways that are proven to fight this attack on your mental health. Prayer, journaling, mindfulness exercises. Sometimes, healing doesn't happen overnight. It's a process that requires building trust and mental strength. I encourage you all to please keep from watching morbid shows like Greater Good. Evil works its way into your mind from all sorts of angles, and you should steer clear of the forms it takes on." The group remains unfazed by Ben's response, each person avoiding eye contact. "Say something, Joseph." "I witnessed the evil myself. I witnessed it firsthand. Chances are, I'm the only one in this room who was a part of the live studio audience. If anyone can testify to Greater Good's toxic effects on the mind, it's me." "Pastor Ben is right," I mutter, my voice cracking. Everyone turns to me, and the silence is deafening. "I saw the show live. I was in the audience. If evil is the right way to describe it, there's a whole lot of evil working through that show." Ben gives me a subtle, grateful nod. It's the first time I've spoken since joining Positive Pathways. Backing up Ben is the least I can do after our conversation the other night at the diner. While there hasn't been much growth since my first group meeting, hearing my voice echo across the church basement is a huge step. And I kinda like the sound of it. Ben smiles. "You know I'll pick up my phone anytime you call. If any of you ever find yourself in a dark place, please don't hesitate to reach out. I also leave the church doors unlocked, so know you're always welcome here. Would anybody like to pray us out before we call it a night?" He glances at me and I instantly shy away. "Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves, Ben." A group member raises their hand, and after Ben nods, they begin. "Dear God, thanks for another day. Thanks for putting up with us and for helping us find a way. Even when we don't know where we're headed or why we're here on this planet, we trust that you got your hand on us. So, yeah. Keep guiding us and we'll just keep going, I guess. Amen." After a few silent beats, Ben says, "That was wonderful." He adjusts his glasses, his radiant eyes panning around the room. "We'll see you all next week." The group members stand and pack their things, some with renewed hope and others just as lost as they were when they arrived. My one conversation with Ben has helped me more than the entire year of group sessions I've sat through. As weird as it sounds, letting someone in on the worst moments of my life felt good. It felt so good, I've thought about talking to Ben again since we parted ways Monday night. Something attached itself to me that night, Something I need more of. Where else to go but coffee? I ask Ben while helping him stack chairs. He grins. Well, I'd be honored. Why do you like this diner so much? I ask Ben after the waitress hands us menus. It's simple, Ben replies, dumping sugar in his coffee. I lean forward, waiting for him to continue. He doesn't. That's it? I ask. It's just simple? Yup. Ben stirs through his mountain of sugar. There are 5 items on the menu, a couple sodas, and cheap coffee. He lifts the mug to his lips and raises his brows. And I sure love my coffee. I squint at him, trying to see what he sees in this place. The floor is sticky, there are rips in the booth cushions, and there's a jukebox in the back of the diner that doesn't even work. Ben is either blind or has extremely low standards. I'll explain, he says, picking up on my confusion. Everywhere you go, you're told that you need better things. The world says you need a better car, you need a better house, you need a better looking face. Places like this old diner are testaments to the fact that we don't need better. We already have more than we need. He sips his coffee. This diner has been in business for over 60 years. They haven't changed the menu. They haven't changed the booths either. I interrupt, picking at one of the holes in my seat. Ben smirks. This old diner is a reminder that we don't need all the fluff the world is trying to sell us. The truth is that material possessions of this world will never be enough. There is beauty in the simple things. You just need to focus on that beauty. Otherwise, you'll miss it because you're too distracted chasing something greater. I never saw it like that, I admit. All this time, I've been focused on the negative. There was always something wrong with my house. I was screwing up my court cases. I lower my head. I'm the reason my son is in a wheelchair. Ben taps on the top of my hand. He speaks each word with conviction, stating, It's like I said last we spoke, Joseph. You need to pick your path. You can be upset with what's wrong with your house, or you can be grateful that you have a house for things to go wrong in. You can fixate on the court cases you screw up, or you can celebrate the ones you win. You can blame yourself for your son not being able to walk, or you can thank God that your son survived the accident. I clench my jaw, nodding as Ben's words are engraved into my heart. You're right, I exhale. You're so right. I've seen the world through this lens of negativity since I can remember. I was just on the wrong path. It's not your fault. Ben peeks over the waitress's arm as she pours us more coffee. It's just the world we live in. Our minds are everything, and yet we poison our minds with sick TV shows and twisted influences. These big corporations and TV networks manipulate the crowd into believing their lives aren't worth living. They're manipulating them into believing that nothing will ever be good enough. And as a result, people of the crowd are giving up on life before they even discover what they were born to accomplish. A shiver travels down my back at the thought. All these years, Ben has seen one broken person after another come through positive pathways, seeking a support group. It's not our fault that we're broken. We're just a product of a broken world. I raise my chin. All these years, I've been looking for the will to live in a dying world. We live in the devil's world, and it's by God's grace that we're able to make it out. The show. I exhale. My elbows hit the table, startling Ben and some nearby customers. I lean forward, whispering, I didn't mention this last we spoke, but that new game show, Greater Good, some people from the group were talking about it tonight. Ben, I saw it. I saw it live, and it's evil, I tell you. It has death written all over it. Ben shuts his eyes, lowering his head. It pains me to see others in pain, and it kills me to know that people are killing themselves. The world has changed a lot over the decades, but one truth will always hold up. You were born to live. He points to my chest and narrows his eyes. Don't you ever forget that. It's God's timing, not anyone else's. I sleep like a baby every night knowing that when it's my time to go, it will be by God's will. I want to believe what Ben is saying. I want to possess the light he embodies and the grace he carries with his words and actions. But I met death the night of the accident, and I watched it take my wife away from me. Death warned me that it would return for me, and I fear it's a bit too late to switch paths. What about death's timing? I ask, my voice quivering. Death was defeated, Ben declares. Death was defeated when Christ rose from the grave. I know death, Ben. I've been trying to shake it since that night. Ben smiles. Death has no power in the presence of God, Joseph. He reaches forward and places his hand on my shoulder. Try letting God into your heart, and I promise that things will fall into place. People of this world will preach of a false greater good, but true greatness comes from above. Don't take the path leading to death. Take the path that leads to life. My entire life, I chased what the world told me to chase while living in this constant cycle. I became a slave to the legal system, a slave to the programming of society. When I unplugged my TV 5 years ago, I did it to hide from the news headlines about the accident. Little did I know, I was dodging a twisted narrative that served to keep people like me from breaking this cycle I've been enslaved to. But what if there's a way to break this cycle? What if true good comes from a being greater than death? What if the true good comes from God? And what if meeting death strengthened my position against it? Maybe I'm being called to fight for more than just the lives of criminals. Maybe I'm being called to fight for the lives of the broken. The door slides open as I enter the gas station store. I nervously flick my gold coin in the air, then catch it in my sweaty palm. While I came for Stevie's Kit Kat like I always do, a more important matter needs to be addressed. Now that I'm Nikki's lawyer, I need the cashier to drop the charges. "How you doing, Joseph?" the cashier greets with a warm smile. I force a grin, my stomach tightening as I prepare to tell him that I'm siding with the criminal who robbed him, regardless of the gun being fake.
"Is that him?"
a voice whispers. I look up from the candy section and see 2 men peeking over the shelf. I make eye contact with one of them. His eyes widen, and he ducks behind the shelf.
"It's him! That's the guy!"
Me? In my peripherals, I see 2 silhouettes appear at the end of the aisle, separating me from the cashier. I slowly face the 2 men who glare in my direction. They stand side by side, their figures polar opposite. One is lanky and the other stubby, his gut reaching toward me like he's in his 3rd trimester. I turn away, my eyes grazing over the shelves as if I didn't notice them staring at me. I walk the opposite way and turn down the next aisle. My eyes are on the cashier at the end of the aisle until the 2 men stop between us again.
"Hey, buddy!"
the lanky one shouts.
"You're that guy from the show, aren't you?"
I look over my shoulder, then back at them. Are you talking to me? Lanky and Stubby take a few steps toward me. Based on the tone behind the few words spoken, I can already tell they don't like me. Usually, lawyers have to keep their heads on a swivel in public places if they prosecute criminals, but I defend criminals. I shouldn't have anything to worry about, but these guys are starting to give me a reason to worry. "I'm sorry, do I know you?" I ask as they now stand only a few feet away.
"You're the guy protesting greater good."
Stubby reveals a picture on his phone of a man walking with his back to a stage. The man in the picture is covering the right side of his face, looking away from the stage where— Wait, my breath hitches. The man in the photo is me. It's a photo taken by somebody in the audience. My head is down, but the scar along the left side of my face is exposed by the camera flash. Behind me, the winning contestant is being electrocuted by the golden hairdryer that was lowered into the bathtub. "Where did you find this picture?" I whisper, looking up at the men. Lanky raises his phone, the light shining in my face as he records me. I stutter a step backward. "Hey, what are you—
"Hey, yo, fuck this guy! It's the guy trying to take down greater good!"
Before I can say a word, they shove me to the floor. Now standing over me, they record me as Lanky shouts,
"How are you gonna fuck with the show that supports suicidal people?"
I raise my hand, shielding my face from the phones that keep getting closer. My body tenses as the front of a shoe digs into my ribcage. I absorb the blow and brace myself for another kick. Silence follows the sound of a gun being cocked. The 2 men slowly lower their phones and turn to see the cashier behind them. The cashier raises his gun between them. "Get out of my gas station before I pop 2 caps in you for messing with Joseph." A nervous gulp forces its way down my throat. The men scurry past the cashier and out the door, muttering profanities under their breaths. My chest rises and falls with every heavy breath once trapped in my chest. Who were those guys? How did they get that picture? And why do they think I'm protesting greater good? I've lived my entire life without being recognized, and I prefer to keep it that way. I don't do well with TV, phones, and all that other crap most people submit themselves to nowadays. I hear stories about clout chasing, fame-hungry people looking for attention on the internet, and never considered becoming one of them anytime soon. "You alright, Joseph?" the cashier asks as he helps me stand. I'm good, I reply, dusting off my coat. My eyes drop to the shotgun resting in his old, shaky hands. Well, that's new. The wrinkles beside his eyes introduce themselves as he smiles. "I brought it to the store the day after I got robbed. You saved my life, you know. If that filthy scumbag ever comes into this place again, I'll put a bullet in that hollow head of his." The hairs on the back of my neck stand when I remember why I'm here. We head to the front counter where I place the Kit Kat bar. I wait for him to slide the shotgun under the counter before I say, "Listen, Anthony, I sort of need a favor. It's important." "Anything you need, Joseph," he chirps. "That robber who stole from you a while back? I'm defending him." A line shows between Anthony's furry brows. Defending him in court? You're defending the criminal who robbed me? It's a bit more complicated than that, I manage. If you haven't already, you and your lawyer will soon get the case file. When you read over it, you'll see that the gun was fake. I know my client didn't steal a whole lot of money from you, and without his intent to actually cause harm, I was hoping the gun was fake? Anthony interrupts, looking down. I nod. An airsoft gun, spray painted black. His face softens. I see you every day. Regardless of the gun, why would you represent someone who stole from me? I was nearly broke when I agreed to defend him. You know I have a kid to provide for. If I had a choice, I wouldn't, but I don't have the luxury of choosing. Look, all I need is for you to drop the charges on your end. If you understood why he did it, you might even have some sympathy for the guy. Anthony raises his hand to silence me. Is what they said true? His sudden change of tone catches me by surprise. Huh? Those two guys that were here earlier. Is what they said true? Are you trying to take down greater good? I fold my lips between my teeth. An urge manifests itself within me to own the fact that I'm becoming the face of some sort of movement. I can't help but think that it ties back to what Ben said about me being called to something great. With my heart being pulled in this new direction and the good that can come from it, I find myself more confident than ever before. It's true, I state. I'm gonna take down the show. You're doing God's work, you know. Anthony sighs, fixating on the Kit Kat bar between us. I'll lose more money going to court than I lost from the robbery. You lawyers are the real criminals with how much you charge, he exhales. After a silent beat, he adds, if you give me your word that you'll fight this show and all the evil it stands for, then I won't testify. I crack a smile. You have my word. I love how I can open my front door without nearly breaking my shoulder. I love how the house smells like a home-cooked meal as I hang my coat on the hook in the entryway. I love seeing Ava wave to me from the kitchen before I enter Stevie's room. I love that Stevie's already tucked into bed, reading under the lamplight. He looks up at me and squints through his lenses. Hey, Dad. I sit on the edge of his bed and swiftly pull the Kit Kat bar from behind his ear. How'd that get there? Stevie rolls his eyes. Magic? I nod while tossing the Kit Kat on his lap. How was school? Meh. Yeah, he exhales, replacing his book with the Kit Kat bar. Mikey tried to pop holes in my wheels again today. I thought he stopped. He never stopped. Stevie sighs. I just stopped telling you about it. I look at the brand new wheelchair I got him. Not a single trace of Mikey's pen. Well, it looks like Mikey failed. It's still annoying. He throws the Kit Kat bar across the room. They just won't stop. No matter what I say, no matter what I do. I hear the frustration in his voice, the anger. I can talk to the school, I reason. They can catch Mikey in the act. He'll get in trouble for how he treats you and finally stop. That will only make things worse, Stevie murmurs. Everyone is still talking about that show, Dad. Our teacher played an episode for us in class, and I think I want to be on it. I suck in a quick breath. My heart now in my stomach. Your teacher what? We watched an episode of Greater Good, and I think I want to be on the show. I see how hard you work. I know you could use the money. You could get a big house with Ava and not have to keep looking after me anymore. Anger and sorrow intertwine within the depths of my being. My anger is fueled by the thought of Stevie's school feeding them this morbid garbage and poisoning their minds. My sorrow is fueled by my own son wanting to end his life for his father, who is also the reason for his pain and suffering. I grab his little hand in mine and look him dead in the eyes. I can't be angry with him because it will only feed his frustration. I can't be sorry for him because it will only feed his self-pity. Therefore, I choose to be hopeful. You listen to me, I say. I quote Ben as if he's speaking through me. You were born to live, Stevie. We could have died the night of the car accident, but we didn't. And it's because you and I are being called to something even greater than greater good. We're being called to fight it, and that's exactly what we're gonna do. Stevie simply nods, unfazed by the promise I just made. I get comfortable next to him, and the two of us lie together until I feel his body loosen to the rhythm of sleep. I silently slip out of the room, doing my best to keep my cool. A fire has started within me, craving something to burn. I won't deny that taking down greater good is my calling. After the past few days, I'm more than willing to accept it. It's time to silence death once and for all. Nikki? I whisper into my phone.
What's up?
He answers half awake. I need your help.